Hello, listeners, and welcome again to another episode on the Green Living Chats podcast. My name is Daniel Hagen, and I'll be your host for this episode. In today's episode, we're very happy to have one of my very good friends, Dr. Schumann, who is the founder of RSS-Hydro, a Luxembourg-based R&D company in the earth observation and computer modeling of water risk, and is also an associate of ImageCat Inc, an international risk management company headquartered in the US. Dr. Schumann is an internationally recognized scientist in disaster risk with affiliations in the US and Europe. He has published many research papers and book chapters and holds a research affiliation with the University of Bristol. He is also a flood expert consultant for the UN WFP and FAO. We couldn't be happier having him on our podcast today, and I'm very excited about the conversation that we're going to have. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about meeting the Sustainable Development Goals using remote sensing-based solutions. And here we're going to be zooming into RSS-Hydro and what they are doing and what we can learn from them. With the vast experience of Dr. Schumann in the US, Europe, Africa, in all other parts of the world, I think that we're going to enjoy listening to him and learning so much from him. How do we translate our research into applications? Another exciting part of this conversation, we'll be talking about research and development, whether postdocs are the best ways to go or should we go into industries. With Dr. Schumann's experience in both research and industry, I believe that you're going to learn a lot and you're going to find yourself making some decisions that will be very helpful, whether you want to go into research or industry. So join us as we talk with Dr. Schumann. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Green Living Chats podcast. Today, I am here with Dr. Schumann. We have become friends in the last year, and I have really enjoyed looking at what he has been doing in the between science and industry. And this is, of course, what GLC is about. And so today, we'd like to have a conversation with Dr. Schumann on meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. And here we are focusing on what we can do with remote sensing technology. So we are looking at remote sensing based solutions. Dr. Schumann is the founder and CEO of the Remote Sensing Solutions Hydro company. He is going to give us a lot of information about what they are doing, and also just to encourage someone and to get us into the area of critical thinking. How do we tackle sustainable goals through remote sensing based solutions? So without wasting much time, I would like to welcome Dr. Schumann. Guy, welcome, and very happy to have you on our episode.
Yeah, hi Daniel. It's great to be here. I mean, it's fantastic. Thank you for this opportunity, and thanks for introducing me like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for saying yes to us. The first thing we want to do is just to get to know you, to get to hear your story, because everyone has a story. And so could you just tell us a little bit about you, and more importantly, how you got to this level, to this impressive level that you are now?
Not sure it's impressive, but I can run you through my career path. I'm a person with many hats, let's say. I studied, of course, geography, as you may be able to guess from the introduction you just gave. But it's I studied geography, did a PhD in that, but coupled very early on, start coupling and merging Earth observation with flood modeling and flood predictions. So, and I never really left that interdisciplinary field, let's say. What I did, though, is I jumped from academia to industry, back to academia, and now in industry again. So I've worked also at research labs around the world. I jumped job positions, but I always stayed true to floods. let's say, if you like, and the sustainable development goals is of course up there big with me. If I run you through the career path, you will understand why. Because after my studies, I ended up at Bristol University with the world famous hydrology group led by Professor Paul Bates, who then more recently spun off as SBN, what became Fathom now. So another company that's doing great things with global flood modeling for industry and also for the humanitarian sector, and also looking into climate change. There was me getting an opportunity to work at the Jet Propulsion Lab at NASA in the US in California. So I took that opportunity. Of course, then I left a professorship position in Bristol. So first thing when I arrived at JPL, a lot of my Californian friends or American friends thought I was absolutely nuts to leave a faculty position for postdoc. Actually, I went into a postdoc position at JPL, Caltech, but it was an opportunity I think not to miss. It also so happened that it was advertised by a friend of mine who back then was at Ohio State University. So you see how, and that's part of my network. My network, I would say, is pretty big internationally, and I keep growing that, and also I keep very true to who I know where, and I pull in a lot of friends, colleagues, people that way. And I've been working in this field now for probably almost 20 years. After the US, of course, there was the question, am I going to stay in the US? So I jumped from JPL into the private sector in the US, where I have to say it's quite easy to do that because all the public funds for research are as available to universities as they are to private sector entities, which is very different in Europe. I then decided at some point, more from a personal perspective and also like family reasons, I come back to Europe, and that was about 2018, so not so long ago. And then I opened up a company that I thought could bridge the gap a bit between R&D and commercializing products, so like industry. But at the same time, when I was still in the US, I got the opportunity to also consult for the World Bank a little bit.
Oh, nice.
And then also started consulting when I was back at home again, 2018, 2019. I started consulting for the United Nations World Food Programme.
Wow.
As a person, so as an expert on floods and remote sensing. So I still do that. And it's great. It opened my eyes a lot. First consulting for the World Bank, but then the UN, that we still don't do enough, let's say, in flooding, in meeting sustainable development goals. There's so many gaps left and right. There's so many needs for more data, ever more data, but more importantly, ever more information that is easy to digest.
That's true.
So I have in my head like a vision or mission to make really complex data accessible, but also very digestible and actionable for the end user, let's call them, but especially for water resource managers and humanitarian sector as well, like aid development, humanitarian capacity building is also important to me. So that's kind of my path.
That's quite a journey. That's really quite a journey, and really impressive. It's really impressive because you talked about going to Caltech, and Caltech has now become very popular, especially because of the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. I have sat in the Cheesecake Factory in Pasadena.
Oh,
I
wow.
can tell you it exists in Pasadena, so it is there. I'm a fan of the series, but not as much as other people. I've also had the opportunity, and that's a great thing, living in Pasadena and LA and in the US. I had the opportunity to go and watch one episode that was when it was on stage. Watch it for free. Actually, you have to line up. You have to queue for about 5 hours.
Wow.
To get in for free, but you're part of the audience. And so I had that great opportunity, and that's something it's just great to be there. Yes, I saw these people live, and it's quite something. To be honest.
Wow, that's fantastic. As you were talking, if we could just specifically pick up on some things, like maybe what was the biggest challenge you faced in this sort of whole journey until the journey to RSS-Hydro? What some of
Okay, I think challenges. There are many challenges. There can be challenges like moving. Like this is not easy. It's a bit easier without like personal family at that stage. Early on, now I've got a family of my own. It's very difficult now to start making those moves. So I can recommend to people, if you want to do that, do it early on, because also it's an experience you can never lose again, but it's hard to get when you miss it. So I had this discussion with Prof. Paul Bates at Bristol when I was about to decide whether to leave Bristol or not, and I remember him saying to me, it's an opportunity not to miss. Because you unfortunately getting a postdoc position, so you go a bit down in that sense, but you go up in the sense of you're going to NASA. And actually my very fortunate position then was I got to work on the surface water ocean topography mission with a big team of people and great people, anybody from like radar engineers to mapping people and flood modeling people. So I had to develop basically large scale flood models for the engineering simulator of the mission. And I'm saying that here because this mission just went up December 2022. So it's up there successfully now, measuring every river and lake in the world. Because it's radar, it sees through the clouds, but it gives you water level and width of area simultaneously. So it's a great mission. And for hydrologists like myself, that was a unique opportunity.
Wow, yeah.
And and then the UK is linked into the mission and Bristol as well. So Paul Bates was linked into the mission anyway back then, and it took almost 20 years from scientists meeting up to discuss missions, and then actually to the mission getting launched. So some of that, it was just great to be a part of it towards the end, I guess. You're asking about challenges. I think one of the biggest, it's not so much a challenge, it's more like an eye-opener that then I became aware how big that challenge actually is. And that's the disappointment. As a scientist, we have access to great data. We have sometimes access to data that isn't even publicly released yet because we're part of a research team. And then the frustration I saw later is that very little really great and cool information is reaching the people it should reach, right? So when I never forget that. I think one of the best experiences was when I was invited to Rome to the UN WFP, and I sat in the emergency room discussion, like conference room, to discuss the ongoing disaster back then in Mozambique, big flooding. And to be honest, I don't know if I remember the year correctly, but it was probably 2019, but I could be wrong because that country is just getting hammered almost every year by big floods. And so I remember sitting there, and they had this screen on where they receive flood maps left and right, universities sending them free stuff, institutions, research institutions, like scientists essentially mapping and then distributing that freely. And the trouble they had is they asked me, which one of the maps that we use? Which one is the good one? And I said, I pass.
Oh my.
Because there's no answer to that question. And then all these maps, the problem was they were coming in too late.
Yes.
And I asked about this. I said, what do you mean too late? And they said, well, satellite records the image, and within their operational protocol, they basically have to move quite fast. And so they said, if we don't receive the image or the map within the next 72 hours, it's actually too late. They move on, or even less than 72 hours. I think that the aim is to get the information as fast as possible to them, because actually, as we were talking about the Mozambique one, then there was another one being triggered somewhere else in the world, a flood, and this is happening constantly. Like floods happen everywhere, every time.
Yeah.
And if you are like the United Nations, you take care of these many countries. I mean, you don't have a week to spend on gathering information for one event, because the next event is already happening simultaneously, somewhere else. So this is the eye opener I received, basically sitting there and going, yes, I'm the expert now. I know a lot about floods. And I had to pass every question. Next question, pass. No, what I then did is I started realizing this, and that there's a lot still to be done about getting information fast to the people really that need it. So it's the kind of get the right information to the right person at the right time. And this is actually from Open Geospatial Data Consortium, like the OGC. They have these test beds where they go with the same kind of idea, get the right information to the right person at the right time. But that's really important.
Yeah.
And I made it kind of my mission to work a lot towards that goal. This getting innovation from research projects much faster into usable products. And I think really the industry sector is the one that can realize this a bit faster than a university, but you need to let innovation into the sector. So you need to let research into the sector. So that's what I'm trying to do with RSS. We're trying to get research projects in where there's a lot of time is cost share. So we need to put a lot of money on the table as well, but we can use that innovation then to drive product solutions a lot faster. And then there's, of course, always a fine line between commercializing something and giving something away for free. So we're also very open source guided. So we want to use open source as much as possible, knowledge share as much as possible. We publish methods. We work with students. We work with interns. And that's a big part of it. But we shouldn't forget that as an industry, we need to make some money, to pay people, at least to pay people, but also to start operating successfully. So that's a thing where I guess I still have to learn how to do that properly, because I'm very often pulled into research projects and very quickly, and also our aid development interest and humanitarian interest in the company as a person, but also my colleagues in the company are very, we have a big heart for that. So we engage a lot in those topic areas. And talking about sustainable development goals, then is a natural progression for us in the company. So we're very serious about, I would say, at least 3 of them. So, or maybe 4. The innovation education goal, and then the goal about the smart cities infrastructure. Number 11, I guess, and then number 13, where we talk about climate action. That's a big one for us. But then I would say even the biggest one is number 17, is the partnership one, to form partnerships, right? And that's where we're very strong at as well. We have partnerships with very big corporates, small entities, and also RTOs at universities, quite a lot. So we're a very small entity, but sometimes we pull the big guys, and especially in research, we are, I wouldn't say we are at the same level, but we are able to keep up. But it's not easy as an industry, but we pride ourselves a little bit on that. And I think we have also quite some nice visibility in the aid development world and in the humanitarian world. We have some small aid development projects that we take very seriously. We had one with partners in Niger, where we just went and had a very successful capacity training workshop on how to use river sensors, open hardware, open source river sensors that are built by essentially a friend of ours, a dear friend of mine, who we were together at Bristol, Professor Wouter Butat. He builds those sensors himself at Imperial College. We had him on the project for exactly that, and we also trained our local partners in Niger to use Earth observation data and know how to use flood models. So we actually, in that project, we were building a skeleton model of a version of LISFLOOD FP, the Bristol model, that we hopefully can use in the future, together with the river sensors and drone data, to get a better estimation of when a flood is coming where and what vulnerable areas they are at risk. So, but we train the people there to actually understand the model and the results, again, because not everybody does have that skill, to actually know how to interpret a model result like that and make use of it. And these things are becoming ever more important, because vulnerable areas like the Sahel region is very much exposed to the real impacts of climate change. And they know it much more than we do, because they feel it every time there's a flood or a drought or disaster happening. They feel that impact a lot more than other parts of the world feel it. So we're very serious about that. So
that's really true. I find what you said, the sort of the revelation that you had when you were asked that question, it's also something that I sort of really thinking more about when we started corresponding, because I then started thinking of how to get my research out of the lab into the community, into the places where it's needed. And I think that that's definitely a good way of looking at it, translating all that. And I think you made a very good point as well, because one of the things that communicating with you has really done is to stir up my mind on these flash floods that started coming in along the coast of West Africa. And Ghana has been at the receiving end of some of these things. And I really started thinking of how can we forecast these things to prepare the communities there for these things happening. So this is definitely something that I want us to sort of go a little more into. You've already started talking about it. So how is RSS-Hydro dealing with these things? How is RSS-Hydro contributing to, say, for instance, SDG 13? You've started sharing some of your experiences, but please feel free to share other experiences that you think will also be helpful to this.
Yeah, it's a great question. And just before I start answering, I wish to say one thing. It's not that you need to move into industry to make an impact, right? I know a number of people that are at university and have a huge impact on the humanitarian part. So I can think of a few here that do work with the Red Cross, for example, in the field, but they are at university. Teaching and doing the research, but at the same time they are in the field actively contributing. So it doesn't mean that if you want to have an impact with your work, you need to change, like you need to leave academia. Not at all. It can be very challenging staying in academia and doing that, and it can be a bit easier doing that in the private sector, because in the private sector you can make things move a little bit faster from research to application, let's say. That may be a bit faster to do, but not necessarily. I mean, it all depends on, of course, it's also a personal thing. So if you feel up to the task, I mean, like I said, there are a lot of people doing it and they are still academia. So no problem there. Coming back to your question, how do we do it as a company? So if you ask me as a company, I think I should give you an example of one of our commercial efforts that we are very serious about, SDG 13, climate action. So one of our efforts to get into a service or product that we think could help a lot of people and a lot of cities, primarily in Luxembourg, where I'm based, but also elsewhere, is to actually, if you take flood risk assessment, traditionally it's done on the return period, where you assess the risk of current and past, and you try to design defense infrastructure on a very small reach scale level, very high detailed data, very good modeling, but very small area. And then you defend that area or not. So now things have moved on a lot from that. So now even the European Commission and governments are calling for some basin-wide or city-wide assessment of flood risk, also with a view to climate change, nature-based solutions. And we need to almost like live with floods. You know, how do we do that? And bringing in climate change. Now there's a big push towards that, which is fantastic. You know, coming from science and academia, I think that's really what was missing in the real world, that there's this component that nobody wanted to talk about seriously in the politics, but now it's there. Climate change is a thing that everybody is aware of. Whether you like it or not, whether you're against it or for it, or say, yes, it does happen or not. But at least everybody's aware of this. So, and this has triggered a few initiatives at government level, like where governments are investing a lot of money towards like implementing measures that are protecting the people and society, but also not only for now, but also in the future with a view to climate change. So we are still developing a service that actually does that. So we use very high resolution data to do urban flood risk assessment with a view to climate change, but also looking at setting up the model in such a way that it can use drainage system, for example, or surface inundation as well. And it can be used to build scenarios, you know, like protection scenarios, and also include climate change projections in that model. So it's a living model, I like to call that. It can be used and it can be improved as we go along with time, and data improves and information needs are different. So we should adapt to that as well as a scientist. So we should always keep an eye on what needs are out there, what can we improve to help people. And yes, and this kind of product we're developing is in line with at least 3 sustainable development goals. I would say the number 9 is the innovation, I think, and then 11 is the smart city infrastructure. And 13, climate action. I think we all do these kind of things. And as I say, we also work in partnerships with the cities and local authorities and even government departments in this sense. So it's also the partnership, like number 17, if you like, that we're very serious about. So I think that's one way as companies, and now companies are getting very serious about SDGs, you know, and also ESG, if you bring in the environment, social governance kind of thing, where some companies need to be compliant with that. So it's all moving in a nice direction, but I think the private sector can really do a lot to speed things up a little bit towards meeting some of those goals, at least to a certain level in the next years or so. So that's what we do when we get very serious about the SDGs and sustainability.
Thank you so much for that. You started with a very important point, though, that I was hoping to for us to just quickly talk about, where you talked about, it's still possible to make an impact, even if you are in the research institutions. And one of the questions that we have been getting a lot, and one of the questions that, at least for the younger generation, is really on our minds is, how does it look like to transition from academia to industry? I know a lot of people who are thinking very seriously about it. I personally have been thinking about that, and my correspondence with you is even an evidence of me thinking about, moving from research to industry. And so the question that I'm thinking about is that, you've had that experience of moving from this to that, and it definitely wasn't a decision you made one day, just one day. It was it was a decision that you gradually transitioned into. I hope.
Yes,
uh,
yes, I did. Yeah, yeah.
so, can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because I know there are a lot of people who are struggling with that decision, and they would like some sort of guidance, especially in the world of sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's say I've been lucky in that sense because when I was at the Jet Propulsion Lab,
Mm.
I didn't have a permanent position. So at some point, contract ended, like with so many people. Of course, it's a natural thing almost. Your contract ends, you need to move on. So then I went very quickly. I had the opportunity to get into the private sector because actually, as I was saying before, in the US, there's no hard line between like academia, research labs like JPL and the private sector. In fact, the company I was joining then with research money, so I was actually a soft salaried person, like they say, on project money only in the company I joined. But the company I joined actually was building the satellite twin, the air SWAT, so the airborne mission for validating and calibrating the SWAT mission that went up in December that I mentioned. So it was kind of natural that I was looking into that direction. And this company also allowed research money and projects to come into the company. So I naturally moved to that where, my contract was a bit weird because it basically was like one or two pages where it says, I've got project money and I can stay with the company. So I was only on research money all the time. So I hardly ever noticed the fact that I was actually in the private sector. But I was. But I worked 100% on research money, mostly coming from NASA at that time. So then when I moved on back to Europe, home country, I thought, well, this was a really cool setup. Maybe I can try the same. So I was kind of lucky to be in a position in the US where I could make that transition very smoothly and still stay 100% research focused.
I see.
When I came back to Europe, it's not so easy to do the same. So I had to build up a company, I think, that does have the two pillars. So the R&D for innovation and the commercial for-profit pillar. Let's call it this way.
Nice.
So that's the natural thing. And it's not easy to keep a company with the two pillars because one pillar, may generate a lot of salary money, but it's not for profit.
Yeah.
So you cannot scale that pillar. You cannot even project the pillar for next year. But a company needs to have that ability to project and commercialize.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to keep the two because, as you can imagine, knowing me, I would really only live for the R&D pillar that doesn't generate any profit.
Yeah.
But it's not scalable. So, and you don't get hundreds of millions of public budget money like a university does to keep you going with that R&D and pay a lot of people.
Yeah.
So in the private sector, if you want to keep that up, you have to actually make the other pillar, the commercial one that brings in the money regularly to pay your people regularly or colleagues regularly. You need to make that strong, very strong. And so that's where we are at now. We're hoping to get there this year, that we can live a bit quieter, and pay ourselves as well as having fun, because the R&D pillar is the fun one.
Yeah.
Is the one you connect, you partner, you travel, you go to conferences. So exactly like at a university, it's just much harder to keep that pillar up. So I would say that part, I would say in my case, I've been lucky, but actually I wanted to say this because we go to PhD fairs as a company. We go to job fairs where we see a lot of young people coming out of a PhD wanting to join industry. And it's never been easier. Nowadays, there's a lot of startups, young companies that actually hire straight out of university PhD level. And so you don't need to, because there are a lot of companies starting up like us, like doing R&D, innovation projects, and still have the commercial part. And so you can actually nowadays fairly easily enough join the private sector, even as an academic, let's say. But you will pivot, of course, because it's not academia you're joining, it's the private sector.
Yeah.
So we are not academics, although we like to behave like academics. So we go to European Geosciences conferences or EGU or AGU, the American counterpart. But yeah, we can only do so many scientific conferences before we notice, well, it's, we are an industry. We should also be somewhere else. Yeah, we do have that same opportunity as at the university, I think.
Wow.
But as I said before, we need as a company to get serious about selling stuff. So, yes.
Wow. That was really, really helpful. A lot of young people don't want to do postdocs because, like you said, it's a temporary position and they feel like they want to go straight into something that will secure them.
Yeah, this is a very good point, if I can interrupt here.
Sure.
This is an amazingly important point, like people don't realize, like people like myself or people that are already professors, or this constant worry of the younger generation. If they stay in academia, they have to first do like between 2 and 5 postdocs.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know postdoc contracts here that are listening in, a postdoc contract is essentially a 1 or 2 year fixed term contract. And so you don't get an opportunity afterwards to get into a permanent position. You basically get kicked out usually.
Yeah.
And then get told to do another one somewhere else.
Yeah.
But not even where you have been in that country. So you usually get told to do somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, and then you take that advice seriously, you move somewhere else, probably with your whole family, do another 2 years fixed term, and then you start to realize that you've actually been just ping-ponged around, and that there may be other opportunities there in the world that would have given you some more, open position. Like a permanent position doesn't really exist. It's like more like an open-ended position, but at least you have a contract that gives you something to build on for the future. Although I have to be honest, it's less secure than a fixed term, technically speaking, or legally speaking. But the assumption is that if you give someone an open-ended contract, you're serious about that person as well. So yeah, it's a tough one, that one. But I understand it. The worry of academia is that you just end up doing postdocs after the postdocs, and you wasted half your life after. So yeah, so what I can recommend though is a PhD plus 1 postdoc, maybe not too bad, and then switching to industry is possible. As well. Just be aware that usually with industry, you will be classified as highly qualified. So sometimes if you join a smaller company, the salary negotiation may be tough, because what you may expect from a PhD plus in salary is probably not what the company can give you. But I can just tell from experience, stay with them and take a little bit of that cut, because later it can be much more rewarding, right?
Yeah, that's very
You can always make more money in the private sector than you can elsewhere.
Yeah.
But maybe it takes just a little bit more time and effort as well. But yeah, that's great.
That's a great advice. I mean, I was going to ask you that later on, but thank you so much for picking up on that. Just sort of one of our final technical questions. How do you think the sustainability movement has benefited some of these SDG goals? I'd sort of like to hear both advantages in your opinion and disadvantages as well. Because I know, for instance, Europe is at the point where there's an energy crisis, and in some situations, it doesn't seem like meeting these sustainable goals is profitable. And so, like, in your opinion, how do you see the benefits and, in a sense, the drawback of this sustainability?
So I can answer that really quickly, actually.
Sure.
Because I think we need to be careful with one thing, and that is that sustainability doesn't become like a buzzword that will be over in another 2 years, and then nobody talks about it again.
Yeah.
We've seen that in climate change so many times before it got taken seriously.
Yeah.
So we're now at a stage where climate change, I think, is being taken seriously. Whether you engage with it or not, it's a different question, but it's been taken seriously. Pros and cons, that's a different question, but we have to be careful that sustainability doesn't become like this buzzword, because that would take us another 10 to 20 years to make people aware it's actually something important. So we need to consider it now as very important. But it's like you say, life always comes up with other crises. So like the energy crisis you mentioned, yes, okay, we can now go back to maybe burning coal, right? which is, I'm just giving a hypothetical example, but maybe that's where
Yeah.
people are thinking now is, again, yeah, it's not wrong to do this because we need to survive, we need to heat, we need to get energy.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot to do with renewable energy as well. There's a lot of innovation in there. And I think we just need to be careful that we are serious about the SDGs or the word sustainability and not take it as this is just not a political buzzword. We don't need to care about it. I think we do need to care about it because we've seen the same troubles with climate change word, where we just need to be careful not to make that same kind of mistake with sustainability.
Yeah.
I think that's my answer. And, but I think, sustainability is maybe an easier sell to the general public than climate change was at the time. Like late 80s, early 90s, telling somebody that climate change is happening, it was much harder to convey that it is now when you say to someone, yeah, we need to live more sustainably. I think a lot of people just say, yes, okay, I understand, but I also have to worry about other things. That is true. But I think we are in a bit more fortunate position right now than we were back, 30 years ago with climate change. But I think I stop here, but because we could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
But I think, we just need to be careful not to get into that thing of a buzzword, and where people don't actually care about the real thing. They just care about, it's a word I need to put everywhere, but I actually don't need to care about it. That could be a mistake. Yeah.
I found myself challenging my own philosophies on climate change just to make sure that I'm finding a really good way of presenting my argument, of dealing with the topic as well, not to sort of be too blindsided, but really look at it intelligibly. I personally think that there is a lack of education that has to be dealt with. Just as you were saying, that it just doesn't become a buzzword and then disappear because we haven't educated people on what this really means. So yeah, that's a very good point. In your final words, if you have any further advice you want to give to someone who wants to follow the Guy Schumann way, if I should put it that way, follow your path, also thinking of setting up a company like RSS-Hydro to deal with some of these things, any piece of advice. And then of course, if you also have anyone you want to say thanks to, anyone you want to appreciate for your journey, yes, please feel free to do that. Yeah.
I think the last one is very difficult. There are too many people. So I hope those that are listening that know me, a big thank you to you, because I'm sure you've done a lot for me. That's all I can say, because there are way too many people to thank. And I think naming people, I would certainly forget some, so I don't want to do that.
Right.
But those that listen that know me, thank you, because it's been great,
Yeah.
The other part of the question is don't do it. Don't follow the path I did, because it is a tough one, but it is so rewarding. So you can do it, but make sure you have the network. And the only thing I can say, to get the network, make sure you don't close a door before you open another one that's actually good as well. Don't just not take an opportunity because you're a bit scared, but go with the flow a little bit and really do take an opportunity when some opportunity presents itself that looks great to you. Just take it. Because I can tell you, if I didn't go to the US and if I knew about it, I would probably regret it. But the best time of, experience and what I gained was probably, not wrong to say, was probably in Bristol University, because university can give you a lot of great experience that you can later on transform and use somewhere else. So of course, working at the Jet Propulsion Lab, NASA, it's really what people think it is. That's really it. If you get the chance to go there, go. It's not that, he just says this because it's Caltech, it's JPL. No, it is a bit of a different thing. It's really cool. Take the opportunity if you get it. Yeah, don't close too many doors when they are open for you. So that's all I can say. And be a bit brave as well, because leaving your home for that many years is not easy.
Yeah.
But I've met fantastic people everywhere. From my university time in Dundee in Scotland, where I studied, down to Bristol, first job, so to say, at university, and then the US and then Luxembourg. Great, great people everywhere. But there are challenges along the way, a lot. But I think the benefits outweigh the challenges very clearly. And just always think about the fact that you can have a little bit of a change. And what I can say to the younger generation, you don't need to make a big impact to be important, right? Just very small steps at a time change a lot.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people there like working in the shadows, also in the humanitarian sector, that don't get a lot of recognition, but they actually change a hell of a lot. These people don't get the recognition that somebody in academia may get, because we publish, we we put ourselves out there. But I think there are a lot of other people that just do very small changes, but they're very important. So don't worry if you can't make the big change. It's not so important. The small changes along the way are probably the more important ones.
Wow.
So that's the probably closing message here, right? So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And again, don't do what I did. Or if you do it better. You know.
All right, listeners. Wow, it's been a fantastic conversation with Guy. There are still more questions here on my sheet that I could have asked, but if you have specific questions, feel free to contact him. He's a super nice guy. Really, I can testify to that. He's a super nice guy and definitely someone that you can collaborate with. Guy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making time for us. We really appreciate all that you've done for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great chatting to you. And hopefully to those that listen, it's been insightful. But yes, do get in touch if you like to know more. But thank you again, Daniel. It's been fantastic spending half an hour with you. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, what a conversation. I'm sure you've learned a lot. If you're interested in finding out more about Dr. Guy Schumann, please check out the information on our website, and you can also reach out to him for collaborations. We look forward to having you on our next episode. And until then, keep living green. Bye.